Hi everybody, it's Erin Scott here. How are you doing? It's been a little while since my last video, so this is going to be taking a look at our full moon in Aquarius, which is happening tomorrow, Monday, August 3rd, 2020. Okay, and we're going to be looking at it through the lens of what's activated, certainly for the sun and the moon, but we're also going to be looking at a lot of other correlations with this particular signature. With this full moon, as is the case with every full moon, we have the energetics happening on the day of and throughout the week of, really. But we're also looking at a monthly cycle here as well. So these energetics are naturally activated now. That's just simply what it is, okay? So what we're looking at here is the archetypal astrology chart. We have Aries at the ascendant point, right? Now I pulled this for New York time, Eastern US, as I usually do when I pull my charts for these public video readings. And you can see here that the MC is here, the AC is here. This is according to New York time zone, all right? And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Now what I'm going to point out is this. Depending on where you live in the world, the ascendant point is going to shift. The MC is going to shift. All of the angles are going to shift a little bit. Now, if you live in London, for example, the ascendant point will be at 19 degrees. Ascendant, descendant, right? If you live in Dubai, for example, or Delhi, excuse me, Delhi, India. I pulled up a few different places on the planet because I wanted to give you what to look for here when we're looking at this chart. So if you happen to live in Delhi, India, or anywhere along that time zone, it would be a 2 to 3 degree Scorpio ascendant point. And if you live in Sydney, Australia, a 29 degree Scorpio ascendant point. Do you see? So we have this kind of alteration of where the ascendant point begins, and the MC alters accordingly. And the reason why I point this out is because you're going to notice that Mercury, with this chart, with this moon, is correlated very tightly with the MC point. In London, and indeed, in the other places on the planet, the Mercury positioning is close or relatively close. There can be around a 14-degree shift, right? So I'm going to be talking about this because this has kind of an interesting signature to it, all right? And of course, when we're looking at Eastern Time US, we're also kind of tapping into Washington, D.C. and any particular activations that politically the US is going to be impacted by, right? So first, let's talk about the sun and the moon positioning. You can see that the full moon is going to be happening at 11 degrees 46 minutes Aquarius. The sun here in Leo, right? And so whenever we have the sun opposed moon every month, we have something coming to light. Some sort of fruition comes about, something comes to light, we become aware of something, perhaps that we weren't before. Something of emotional relevance might be arising. This is just the symbology of the sun reflecting its light on the moon makes this so, right? And you're going to notice that this sun and moon opposition is squaring Uranus, right? 10 degrees, almost 11 degrees in Taurus. So let's talk a little bit about that. One thing that I want to make a note of is that when we're talking about the sun in Leo, naturally what we're talking about on a collective scale, and this impacts us also as individuals, is that the sun represents our externalized persona, who we are expressing. The sun is the natural ruler of Leo. And so when we're talking about the sun in Leo, especially opposed to the moon, because there's something coming to light to create some activation here, we want to be heard here. So whatever is activated on Monday the 3rd or throughout the week, or indeed throughout this next monthly cycle, everybody, what we're looking at here is a need to be heard. Hear me, see me, recognize me here, okay? That's the individual. Now, what is it opposing? It's opposing the moon. The moon is the inner self. So what is it that the inner self, the archetypal self, the collective self, and you as an individual, what is it that inside is going to resonate for you? What is it that will be the desire? What is it that matters to you? What is it that has meaning for you during this cycle? Well, it's going to be something with regards to evolution, the evolutionary process. Something needs to shift, to change, to evolve, to grow. Something needs to happen here. Now, we want to be heard, and we're feeling that something needs to shift on the collective. When we're talking about a moon in Aquarius, we're talking about humanity as a whole. And so there's a need here for the collective and for us as individuals to have some growth, some change, some correlation to the needs met of the individual, perhaps now that's not being met. And when we look at the square position, Uranus is here. Uranus in Taurus. Here it's in the 7th house, which we also want to talk about the 10th, the 4th, and the 7th. But let's first just talk about the energetics, okay? With regards to Uranus, as some of you know already, is a complex archetype. It's the ruler of where the moon is sitting. It's the ruler of Aquarius. It's a complex archetype, okay? One thing we know about Uranus is that it operates non-emotionally. It is not attached to the emotional signature whatsoever. It creates electric, hyperactive. There's a hyperactive, high frequency electric action set with regards to the function of Uranus, right? We know that Uranus governs the evolutionary process of humanity from the deep past to the more refined future. But this does hold a trauma signature from barbarism, apathy. There's a devolved nature that is also part of the paradoxical nature of Uranus, everybody. This is not just about evolution. It governs the evolutionary process, but it holds the signature of what was devolved. And so when we're looking at Uranus, we're talking about a very complex functionality that we could talk a long time about. But what I want to share in this video for this moon is that there is shifts and changes happening for us, all of us, materially. There are shifts and changes happening for us with our ethos, with our ethic. There are shifts and changes happening for us with regards to what we have, in regards to what keeps us safe. Our shelter, our things, our possession, our savings, all of these things are shifting and changing now. It's part of this evolutionary process over the next 5 years that we're going through. And so the changes that are occurring here are directly squaring the inner self and the outer self. So it's playing a significant role in the inner and outer need and the expression of the self. Okay? So the changes happening are impacting and calling us to shift and change. Now, there's something very significant about this particular dynamic, of course, which is that Uranus rules where the moon is having its full moon point. And so what this means is that what will matter to us is to move with the evolutionary process of change. Some people, of course, will resist the change. Some people, of course, will not be able to accept what is in a way that understands that it's functional, that what is destructing out needs to be destructed out, that the job losses that might have come about are part of the bigger collective story, and this is what is creating an inner need to evolve, to go with the flow, to create the inner changes. You're going to notice that this moon, everybody, in this Eastern US chart, and indeed in the chart of many other places in the world, okay? This moon, look at the position. It's in the fourth house. The fourth house is the house of the moon. So inside all of us and inside this collective self, the collective humanity self, there's a need to change. There's a desire to change. What matters to us is moving with the flow. Now, one of the paradoxical signatures of Uranus and Aquarius is that it always holds a trauma signature. Always. And why would that be? Well, it's quite simple, really. When we're talking about this archetype governing the entirety of the human evolutionary process, of course we're talking about a trauma signature imbued because it holds all of it. It's paradoxical. Okay? So what does this mean then? It means that there will be trigger points emotionally for us. Do you understand? We're each going to have trigger points as we go with the flow of the changes occurring, as we get confronted with the changes occurring, and we're asked, it's necessary that we evolve, that we grow, that we allow what is to be what it is. And the reason being is that there's a bigger story at play here. The earth has her story. The collective psyche of humanity has its story. We have our story, and they're all interlinked. But they have a voice too. These other stories, we are part of it, and we must allow the bigger stories to play out and respond accordingly. Okay? But what's happening here is that there is an inner response to what's happening here. That's the exciting thing about this particular moon. And listen, some people are going to only feel the trauma signature of the inner self being triggered by what they might deem as the unfortunate externalized circumstances happening. Do you understand? Some people are going to feel elated and more free at this point, free inside so that they can express outside with their creative gifts and skills. Do you understand? It depends on who the individual is. It depends on their blueprint. It depends on their level of conscious awareness. It depends on their self-awareness capacities. So everybody's going to respond differently to this, but the inner self is feeling the shifts of change. And it is going to prompt externalized expression, a desire to be heard. And that being said, let's talk a little bit here, right? So as I said earlier, Mercury at the MC. Now, for Eastern US, this is very tightly correlated. With regards to other areas of the planet, it shifts a little bit, okay? But it's still close to this MC point. And what I want to point out is this particular full moon has this signature as part of it. So what will be the natural goal for the collective self at this time? What will be the goal for you at this time in some way, shape, or form? Well, everybody, the goal will be emotional alignment. The thoughts will be on safety, security, home, family, property, land. This could be thinking about the future of, in fact, the moon in Aquarius in the fourth house, which is the Cancer house, of home, family, safety, security, emotional nourishment, and whatever nurtures us at a very core level. All of these things have meaning for us now. And indeed, that is the goal, MC in Cancer. So the thoughts are going to be focused on the future, Aquarius, of home, safety. Where am I secure? Where am I nurtured? And what's the dream of the nurturing? Now, why do I say that? Because if we go down here to Neptune, Neptune is trining that Mercury. The goal point, the Mercury point, is trining imagination. It's trining seeking the ideal. What is the ideal reality? And look at the brilliance of this too, everybody. Neptune is here in the fifth house. The fifth house is the house of Leo and the sun. So what this says is that there's a correlation to where our mind is focused for our own externalized expression and egoic freedom. And it's connected by harmonic trine to the ability to visualize what is ideal for the self. Okay? Beautiful. Fifth house, too. So, what is my ideal expression? Says you, says the collective. What is my ideal deeper essence of expression? What is what's my bliss? What is my, per Joseph Campbell, following my bliss? What is that blissful path? This is aiding this. Okay? So the Neptunian imagination is aiding the mind's focus on the future of what is the nurturative path that's correlated with my inner moon-based future. It's beautiful. You're going to notice in this chart too that Saturn and Pluto are right at the root. Do you see that? Capricorn root. So your inner self, your home, your family. Indeed, for some of you, issues of mother are also going to be activated, by the way. That's definitely the case because of the mind at the MC in Cancer, and the fact that the moon for many of these charts is here in the fourth house. And we have all of this kind of focus on the IC. For some people, there's going to be issues with mother coming up. Okay? Now, Pluto and Saturn are at the root, everybody. There's some sort of focused attention, perhaps, on, I don't know, the stability of your emotions, feeling more of a foundation. Because the thing is, it might be shifting. It is shifting. It's not, it might be. It is shifting. In other words, the foundations of your reality, your emotional foundations, your inner self, your home, your property, your land, there's something about your foundations, everybody. This is for all of us. That's changing. It's transforming. And you might feel that the ground under your feet is not stable. And this might be new. Now, as we all know, as I'm recording this on Sunday, August 2nd, 2020, right? As I'm recording this, many people are possibly either already being evicted or on the precipice of being evicted. This is because of the lack of extended benefits that have not come out of the United States government, okay? As I say that, for many people listening to this, there will be a transformation, a death of home, I see. Do you understand? And so there will be a serious focus about these issues. And indeed, the moon, the inner self, is aligning with what's next, right? What's the evolution of my inner life, my safety, my security, my home? Okay, so for a lot of people, this is activated. Here you can see Jupiter beautifully in the third house. This is great because what this indicates is that Jupiter with Pallas Athena here, with the retrograded energetics, all of these are at the retrograded points of process, heavier energy here, okay? But with Pallas Athena with Jupiter in this third house of curiosity, learning, communications, neighbors, siblings, this kind of thing, there might be a powerful woman that might come to the fore for you. You might become aware of somebody of potency for you. And there might be learnings or teachings that are coming forward for you that's going to aid. It's going to instigate some curiosity. It will aid with the transformations that are occurring. These deep transformations that are occurring, right? There is a new maturity and a new groundedness, a new self-ownership, a new self-responsibility, a new self-discipline that wants to come about within you. Each one of you listening, it's the same story. Emotional, I see, maturity is the name of the game for this cycle. This is about growing up emotionally. This is about developing and moving into emotional maturity. Indeed, with the moon in Aquarius, Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, is naturally, by its archetypal nature, non-emotional, as I said before. And so the moon in Aquarius can operate differently, definitely. But one of the ways that it can operate that can be of benefit if you activate this function of it is that there can be a healthful level of emotional detachment from trauma, from the past. This can, if you allow it, get you grounded in present moment reality. I will emphasize, however, that Aquarian energy and Uranian energy it requires harnessing. It can be highly electric and very PTSD in its operation. It requires harnessing. It requires mastery. And so the beautiful thing about this is that Saturn at the root, the IC is the natural point that is associated with the moon, is calling for that. In other words, there's an aiding energy with the Saturn here because it can help stabilize a self-discipline and a maturity emotionally that's calling to become enacted. For other people, they're not going to necessarily be at the same stage of conscious evolutionary process. And Saturn at the root can be quite rigid, quite reduced, quite serious, quite self-focused. This can be very walled off, very closed off. There can be a block emotionally with Saturn here. So it calls for maturation. How the person chooses to mature that energy, that's their free will choice. Okay. Let's look at the nodal axis. The south node here in Sagittarius in the third, you can see, everybody, that it's part of a yod. It's the pinnacle of a yod. Do you see that? Green lines coming up, green lines coming up. So that south node is a key point of growth and evolution. This pinnacle point of the yod indicates necessary process. Either tomorrow or this week or within the month ahead, there is going to be process that will play out. And the process has to do with communications that are triggering a fear, that are coming out of like news reports. Okay? News reports, social media, all kinds of narratives swirling around, being communicated to the masses. This is a point of reinforcing of you don't matter, you are powerless, you are small, you are low in the hierarchy. Okay? So this old patterning of belief about I am too small, too weak, I'm not powerful enough, I don't matter, ultimately, this needs to be grown and matured. The pinnacle point of the yod shows that. So this is what needs to be matured. In other words, to value yourself, your inherent value, to know, to understand, to recalibrate your thinking, to understand that of course I matter as a person. Of course I do, because I'm part of nature. Inherently I matter, of course. This is taking work. This is discipline, okay? It takes a decision, and it takes self-honesty to really work these growth edges, everybody. So with this north node, it's not responding well. It's in a dissonant, disconnected energetic with the mind and where the mind is focused. Here, the mind is focused on issues of home and safety and security, family, and, feeling comfortably protected. That's where the mind's thoughts are at, right? And the goals with regards to developing all those things, developing a life of nurturance. But that mind is harmonically connected to major fear and distrust narratives. Fear and distrust that you can manifest the money that you need or have the life that's going to give you what you need to live and survive. So the fear is easily communicating with the mind, and the fear is not responding well over here. The mind's goals and orientation is not responding well over here. Together, this will occur this month. There will be fear that arises. There will be a desire to feel protected and safe. And what's the outlet point for any kind of dissonant energies that play out? To know that you're valuable, to know that you matter, to know that you have the experience, the wisdom, to know that you have the skill sets. You have it. It's a matter of knowing that you do, though. You know, it's about belief system alteration here, right? Let's see what else we want to look at here. Black Moon Lilith is over here. It's at a critical 29 degree in Aries, okay? Black Moon Lilith in Aries. This is not feeling valued. So in other words, there's going to be some sensitivity arising over the course of this cycle about the self not feeling valued, that your passions, your energy, your driver, your motivation, your ideas, your innovations, there's going to be some sort of inner narrative that says that those aren't valuable. Okay? And what is it squaring? It's squaring Saturn. So there's this, kind of activation here between Lilith and the part of fortune, which is representing flow. It can also look like money. So we have this kind of devaluation of your own flow and your own ideas and your own passion and your own leadership capacity that's squaring in a kind of a conflict energy with a certain level of emotional seriousness about the transformations that are occurring, right? You're going to notice that the Lilith part of fortune with Mars, so this is all, the what I do doesn't matter here, or my leadership doesn't really have true value. This is impacting the perspective. And what is the perspective here? It's at a 22 degree point for the Washington, D.C. Eastern Seaboard here, okay? So we have looking at life through the lens of being the role model, being the teacher, and the desire, the self looking through the lens of I want to teach others. Okay, so this is great. This is wonderful. But yet it's connected to, but I don't trust my own abilities here. So there's a desire to teach others, yet there's a lack of trust in the ability to do so. And in the meantime, it's connected into a level of kind of serious, maybe hyper level of focus, almost like a depressed level of focus. Saturn can be depressive. It can be a very oppressive and depressive energy. So there can be some emotional depression that arises, everybody, okay, over the course of the cycle about the transformations occurring with work and career and the structures of your reality. And here you are actively, these energies are actively moving within your psyche here. There's a desire to teach. There's a lack of trust or faith that you have the value or the skills or whatever to do so. You might not think that others are going to receive your leadership skill sets in a way that is desirable. And here can cause some depression about the transformations and the inability to make them move. Well, this is the growth edge. Okay? You're also going to notice that all this stuff down in the root is opposed. The MC, Mercury, Varuna. Varuna is a level of confidence here. So there is a level of confidence that is emerging for the identity to express itself, for the mind to really visualize and imagine the ideal reality of who you are as a free, individuated fifth house self. This is your individuated, expressed selfhood, everybody. So this kind of the focus of the mind is opposing a deep emotional weight. And so there might be some depression that arises if it does. Be with it. Speak to it. Find out what it's saying to you. Don't deny it, and don't repress it, and don't alcohol it or drug it away. This is about feeling your feelings here, because there's stuff, there's juice. There's stuff to listen to with this stuff. These functions that are arising are functional. So let them have their function. Don't deny nature. Do not deny the nature of your process here. Okay? Important. Important. Now, South Node quickly, here in the third house. Up here, the North Node is with Venus. And it couldn't be more brilliant, really. Because when we look at the South Node, we realize that this is the pattern that needs to be let go. It needs to be released. It's the pattern that is now not the evolutionary process, but rather the devolutionary process, right? So we talked a little bit about the South Node as it relates to the yod, but the polar opposite point of the thing that needs to, see, there's two things with this yod, and I want to make sure I'm clear, because I realize that this can be a little confusing. When we're looking just at the nodal axis here, the South Node, there's something about this point that the function of where it is, third house Sagittarius, that must be dissolved, simply because it's not the correct place to put your energy. The evolutionary arc, the new pattern of being, is here. So this is the old pattern of being that needs to be transmutated into the new pattern. In a paradoxical way, the South Node is also the tip of this yod. And so let me explain. With the tip of the yod, this is a release point for any tension that you might feel with trust issues that are coming up in your thoughts. So what that means is that this requires the belief that you matter in this world. Okay? So that's that. When we're talking about the nodal axis of growth, what needs to be released here has to do with your held beliefs, your personal communications that are based on philosophies or religious dogma or belief systems that are not even your own. What needs to be evolved here is your own thoughts, valuing your own discerned mind. What I will share with you is this. I had a session this morning with my members, right? Every Sunday morning I have, a live stream. In the center of the spread, because I ended up pulling a spread with it, in the center of the spread was the card discernment. Indeed, for this week ahead, discernment is the name of the game. And this is what it's pointing to. So as this full moon is activated with all of these different energetic signatures, here is the evolutionary growth point. The growth is to value your own mind, your own discerned, present moment, intellectual mind that questions, vets information. Let that vetted personal experiential information, let that root as your new belief system. Okay? That's the growth arc. Okay? And you're going to notice, by the way, that this growth arc about trusting your own mind and discerning the information that you get from the ninth house, like mass media, stuff like that. Discern it. That's the growth. Value your own capabilities as an intellectual person with whole mental functioning. Not just analytic function, but intuitive, emotionally connected, experiential, connecting the dots. Okay? Vet, discern. You'll notice all of these quincunxes. No accident with this one. Because these quincunxes down to the Pluto root Saturn will mean that there will be a certain level of rigidity emotionally that you might experience. So when that arises, be mindful of it. There I go in fear again. This can look like fear arises here, right? There's like, it's almost like there's a paralyzation that happens on a deep emotional level. And in the meantime, this point of inner contraction is not allowing the mind to operate as it needs to now. So let go. Let go. There's stuff destructing out in our lived realities, everybody. Let it go. Let it go. It's destructing. Acknowledge what is and let it be. It is dying out for a reason. There are things dying out for a reason. So find the reason, understand the reason, look from a larger perspective, pull back out of your own individuated perspective, which, by the way, is what the South Node is talking about, and pull up into a broader, discerned mind. Be curious about what's happening, as opposed to being rigid in a belief system and communicating something like in automation here. Be curious about what's happening. There's lots going on here. What is that about? Isn't that interesting? But the thing is, if you hold too tightly emotionally to the story of death and destruction and everything so serious, that's not going to bode well for the growth arc that wants to really come into bloom here. Okay, everybody? I'm going to leave it there. I hope that this was helpful. There are going to be some other videos coming out. I do think that I'm going to be doing not a full natal analysis, but I am going to be doing a natal review. Let's call it a natal chart review of Alex Jones. So that's probably going to emerge at some point soon. Okay. Listen, I have a lot of sales going on. For those interested, you can go to elscott.org to the services page. And I have a sale happening on a natural career alignment analysis. And I have a sale happening for those of you who are born under the sign of Leo. So that solar return analysis is on sale. And there's some other offerings there that might be of interest to you. Definitively, if you haven't ordered your natal analysis yet, order that. And if you have any questions, you can be in touch. All right, but I send you all much love and support for this full moon Aquarius process. As we move into a more dynamical period of shift and change, I'll have some more videos coming out soon with regards to those things. All right, much love. Bye-bye.